Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Triple Play, that podcast where every other word is an F-bomb, because this month we watched Alien, Aliens, and Alien 3, stylized as Alien Cubed.
Written by Dan O'Bannon, Ronald Shusett, James Cameron, David Giler, Walter Hill, Larry Ferguson, and Vincent Ward, kind of.
Directed by Ridley Scott, James Cameron, and David Fincher, in that order.
And released in 1979, 1986, and 1992.
Yeah,
in that order.
We should just mix it up one episode, put them in the wrong order. That'd be really confusing, and kind of a dick move. Yeah, not every word's going to be an F-bomb, because we try to keep this podcast vaguely PG to PG-13
speak
rated.
for yourself.
And I don't want to have to go back and censor out a ton of F-bombs, because I am not willing to put in that much effort.
Well, we'll get to what that actually meant when we get to the third movie. Kind of ruined the script with that decision. The infamous Alien 3.
Yes.
Return of Aliens 3. The third one.
You mean Alien Cubed?
Yeah.
Yeah, the naming scheme for these movies really sucks, by the way. Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection. Prometheus. Alien Covenant. Like, bloody hell, how do you tell which one's which after Alien 3? In fact,
Maybe Aliens is actually Alien 5, and everyone just thought it was an S.
I mean, for a while, the guy who did District 9, who I'm totally forgetting the name right now, Neil Blomkamp was working on an Alien 5 that was just going to retcon Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection out of existence.
Might have been for the best.
But then Fox was like, Ridley Scott's already working on his Alien movie, so no, you will not make that movie. And he was like, oh,
he was like, just try and stop me. No.
He was like, fine, I'll just post the concept art online so everybody can be all enamored with how good my movie would have been. And, yeah.
Wow.
Then he went off to make short films, I think.
Boo!
He puts them all up on YouTube.
Boo! Anyway, Alien.
Yeah, Alien. So, Alien, the story of Alien, which we're going to try and tell in a much more condensed form than the hour-and-a-half documentary dedicated to the first movie and the 3-hour one dedicated to the second movie. The story of Alien begins with just a screenwriter, just a guy who's like, hey, I should write a sci-fi story.
Yeah, well, I mean, it actually begins with a lot of people who sort of came together, who sort of, I guess, came together, like, hey, there's all these cool movies that we watched. Let's make our own version.
Well, it begins with the one guy, because...
I don't know his name. I don't know his name.
And the reason why it begins with him, Dan O'Bannon, the reason why it begins with him is because he was going to write a sci-fi story, but then he got called away to work on Jodorowsky's version of Dune, the movie Dune, which was going to be very strange, and if you don't know, never ended up getting finished. But while he was working on Dune, he met or learned about H.R. Geiger, who also worked on Dune. I don't know if you ever met Dan O'Bannon personally, but they both were working on that movie. So that's how the relationship was formed. And then Dan O'Bannon, after that movie got canned, went to his other buddy and was like, hey, I want to write a sci-fi story. And the other guy was like, hey, what about that story you have about a gremlin getting loose on a World War II bomber? Why don't you do that, but do it in space? And then Dan O'Bannon was like, good idea. So that's how it all began. The very beginnings.
All right. Yeah, so they also made some callbacks to other movies with aliens or just creatures attacking people, like, horror-style movies, which the first one was. Kind of changes genre there in the second one, but...
Apparently Dan O'Bannon said, we didn't steal Alien from anybody. We stole it from everybody. But yeah, so he wrote the, first draft of the script, and it was pretty similar to the final draft, I think.
They just didn't have the alien... They just didn't have the alien impregnation idea yet.
And they didn't have the design of the alien at all. That was one of the most difficult to come up with things for the first movie. But
turns out someone else just did all the work for them, though.
Yeah, H.R. Geiger.
Yeah, but
yeah. So anyway, of the 3 movies, the first one's script went through the least rewrites, and the third one's went through the most. But we'll get there. So he pitched the script to Fox, I think, and Fox was like, yeah, we'll make it. And
it's going to be low budget, and we don't have much confidence in it. So good luck with that.
So we'll get amateur film director Ridley Scott, who now is, I guess, known as one of the greats, but in 19...
Well, it's because of this. It's because of Alien.
It's because of this and Blade Runner, which he made just after this, I think.
A couple years later. I think that came out in 1982.
Yeah, so those are his 2 breakout movies, was this and Blade Runner, yeah. So
Can't wait for that new Blade Runner. No, actually, no.
I cannot wait. Anyway, he was like, all right, so... how are we going to design this alien?
How are we going to do
boys?
This?
And Dan O'Bannon was like, honestly, no idea. That's your job. And he was like, great. But yeah, Dan O'Bannon showed him some of H.R. Geiger's pictures because he had just published a book of his paintings.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Geiger didn't actually come to the rest of them like, hey guys, maybe we could use this. They just kind of discovered that he had published these images and they're like, wow, that's actually perfect.
Yeah, so what had happened was because Dan O'Bannon had been working on Dune, he knew about H.R. Geiger's work and he liked it. So when Geiger published this book, I think called the Necronomicon, with a lot of Geiger's work in it, a lot of his paintings, one of the paintings really stood out to Ridley Scott and Dan O'Bannon and everybody else who was involved in the movie, called Necronom 4, I think.
And it's basically exactly how the alien looks in the movie.
Yeah, and they were like, this is basically perfect. Let's call up Geiger and ask him to come down and work with us to design the alien. Now, Geiger was a painter, but not a traditional painter. He painted with airbrushes, which apparently the art community was like very snooty at the time and looked down upon him for that. But he was like, I don't care. I just paint things from my nightmares, apparently. But yeah, he basically single-handedly designed the costume, with some help to, I guess, make it real, but he basically put it together, like, in reality.
Yeah, so
both in concept and in reality.
They used a lot of things that you wouldn't expect them to use in the costume. They used a human skull. Apparently, I don't know if I believe that part, but apparently they used a human skull in it. They used pipes and car parts.
Mm-hmm.
They used KY jelly to make the alien appear slimy. I think that's.
Yeah.
I think that was just in its mouth, not because it sort of appeared smooth, actually. So when I read that, I was like, "What?"
Yeah, and they made some changes from the inspiration painting. I guess they shortened the length of the alien's skull and made it a bit more slender.
Giant head tail coming off at all kinds of angles. Actually, just one angle, just one really inconvenient and cumbersome angle.
Yeah, backwards. And so that was how the world famous alien came to be. You barely see the alien in the first movie at all because I think Ridley Scott realized the alien costume itself looked super low budget compared to the rest of the movie, so you barely ever see the alien.
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things where it's like if you don't see the creature, it's actually more scary, or if you just see like glimpses of it in the shadows. Yeah, because when you actually do see the aliens more in the second and the third one, the costume itself doesn't actually look that scary. I mean, if I was confronted with this thing in real life, I would be pissing my pants. But like on screen, it's like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, I think that's like if you look at Alien Covenant, they do like CG versions of all the aliens, like bright daylight and.
Yeah, it doesn't look that good.
Like you said, if I saw this in real life, I'd be pissing my pants. But on screen, it's not really that.
Yeah, it's like that.
Especially in Covenant when it's like broad daylight and the alien's like, "What's up, boys?"
Yeah, H.P. Lovecraft does this a lot in his stories. I don't know how much they were inspired by him, but if you're writing a lot. But if you're writing, anyone who's writing like I mean, if you're from the U.S., anyone who's writing like a science fiction / horror thing is going to be probably even subconsciously influenced by Lovecraft. But there's a really good story that this decision not to show the alien reminded me of, which is the account of, God, I can't remember what it's called now, but it's like the account of something Carter. Mm-hmm. This guy Carter is like a really famous character in Lovecraft's stories, so I'll post a link to it or something, but it's pretty cool, and it only takes like 5 minminutes to read. So
yeah, I've never actually read any Lovecraft.
He ruins it in the last line though, where he revealed the creature talks.
Oh,
because it's like this unknown. I'm spoiling it, but it's like this unknown creature.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I can just summarize it. There's these two guys exploring like a gravesite, and they find this under one of these graves. There's like this unknown space, and one of the guys just wanders into it, and the other guy's just waiting with a phone, and like he's just waiting for the other guy. And all of a sudden, he hears the other guy screaming, like, and he's like, "Don't come down here. If you see what I've seen, you'll never be the same. I'm not coming back up." And then he just dies, and then you're left with like, what is this? It's so creepy. You have no idea what it is. There's some creature, but you don't know what it is. Yeah. But in the last line, it just ruins it when it talks. So that's kind of the same idea here, right? They didn't. If they had shown the alien enough, or if the alien had talked, would have just ruined it. So good on them. Good on them.
Yeah. Slightly related, I remember reading some guy who was involved in the first
Randall
production.
Carter,
I don't remember.
that was what his name was, the character.
One of the guys said that H.R. Geiger himself looked like something straight out of Lovecraft, but he didn't think he ever acknowledged it himself.
Jesus.
Yeah, apparently H.R. Geiger liked Lovecraft, so.
Yeah, I mean, making this movie about aliens, whereas Lovecraft was making his stories about not illegal aliens, and apparently that's a politically incorrect term, which hasn't stopped me from using other terms before, but yeah, I still don't like that term, illegal aliens, for whatever reason. Aliens.
There's an urban legend regarding that term. Apparently for the second movie.
Yeah, I read that.
Someone who read the title Aliens thought it was going to be about illegal aliens, but that's an urban myth. It wasn't actually true.
Yeah. Actually, I don't necessarily dislike the term illegal. I guess this has nothing to do with movies. I don't necessarily dislike it. I just never use it. Like, ever.
Yeah, that's because the word alien, because of so much science fiction stuff recently, has come to mean alien from space rather than the original definition of the term alien, which was someone who's not from the country you're in, like the Alien and Sedition Acts from 1780-something, I think, if I remember my U.S. history correct. Everyone's like, what? There are aliens in the U.S.? It's like, no.
Yep. Yeah, well, Lovecraft also has... His stories are about aliens in the sense that they're not from Earth. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But he also has those really racist stories where he goes on like 3 pages of just happily describing how like an entire street collapsed and just killed a bunch of immigrants.
Jesus. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So anyway, back to the first movie. Apparently the Nostromo set was built as one contiguous set.
I didn't know
in a warehouse. So you had to walk. There were like 2 exits on either end of the set. And you had to walk through the whole set to exit. And I think Scott said that like that decision was made to make it more realistic for the actors. They feel cramped when they're in the set. And
yeah, exactly. So one of the things that stuff like this always brings to mind for me, I think I've mentioned it in a previous episode at some point, but in the Harry Potter movies, I don't like those movies at all. Well, kind of, but
I like some of the early ones.
Yeah, I like probably the Chamber of Secrets, but in those movies, for like all the books in the background that you see, they actually hired bookmakers to make all of those books, like just thousands upon thousands of books. And I guess the reasoning behind it is like, we could have just made a bookshelf prop and it would have looked realistic and believable. But we just wanted to go the extra mile, and we made all these books, and really, I guess, helps put you in this castle.
Yeah,
Hogwarts, I guess.
Well, you did actually mention that on the show before, and I'm trying to remember what episode it was, because I remember we were talking about attention to detail on that. But there's another story about attention to detail not related to this movie at all. But Lord of the Rings, apparently, I think Lord of the Rings, or was it Wizard of Oz? One of the 2 movies, the people who made like the armor, I think it was Lord of the Rings, worked with like the shiny metal all day making this chain link armor that their fingerprints actually rubbed off, and they didn't have fingerprints for like 6 months till they grew back because they were working so much with all this metal. So, because they were actually making armor.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to this movie. Yeah. So one contained set. Apparently, one of the actors who dies really late in the movie. Shoot, which one is it? I think it's the one who claims he's seen actual aliens now.
What?
Yeah, one of the guys in this movie believes he's actually seen aliens. Yeah,
maybe he has. I don't know.
Yaphet Kotto or Kotto. Yeah, he says he's seen actual aliens now, just recently. But anyway, yeah, he was determined to survive the movie because in the script it says he dies, and he's like, I'm going to survive this movie, Ridley. And he's like, right. So Ridley apparently went to the guy in the alien costume and told him, like, which door Kotto was hiding next to so the alien could get him.
Yeah, kind of weird how much the actors, there's some other stories on this too that we'll get to, but kind of weird how much the actors thought they had say in the script in these movies.
Especially on the third one. Yeah, I don't think there was like any major hiccups in the casting. I think they just held auditions and then they just cast everybody.
Sigourney, however you say it.
Sigourney.
Weaver was apparently cast last. But that doesn't really have anything to do with anything. It's just sort of a fact.
Yeah. These movies would also be her launch to stardom, kind of. Because I think Fox went for a lot of kind of unknowns in the first movie because, like we said, it's a low-budget movie, so you can't really afford a lot of the big-name actors. And Sigourney Weaver, from what I read, was a stage actor.
I don't know. I didn't read much about her.
And this was one of her earliest movies that she... did, and it turned out to be a really good choice because she got paid $1 million for the second movie and $4 million for the third one, which nowadays seems like a low salary, but in her day she was probably like the second highest paid female actress because of those two movies. Yeah,
so another thing about the sets that I forgot to mention was I didn't realize this until I read it, but apparently there were only 3 sets for the first movie. So you have the Nostromo, obviously, which that one probably took up the most time and money to make and was obviously a really good set. But the only other ones were the alien craft and the planet. Which I didn't realize. I guess, it makes sense, but I didn't realize that until I read it. So I guess really hammering home how actually not high budget this was.
Yeah, but it didn't need to be high budget. The first movie holds up really well, surprisingly.
Yeah, better than the second and third one, actually.
But apparently H.R. Geiger was like really upset with their design for the inside of the alien spaceship because he had these grand visions for the layout of the alien spaceship, and Ridley Scott was like, we just don't have the money for that, Mr. Geiger. We're just going to have to rearrange some of the stuff because we just don't have the budget.
I guess, and even with the Nostromo constructed as one continuous set, it's not like, well, I guess I'm only speaking for myself, but it's not like I have a layout in my mind of the ship, even though I know now that it's one continuous set. So even if they were to do something where they actually constructed a continuous set and like detailed the alien ship more, would it have really mattered in the end, or would you just see like these little set pieces like you kind of did for the Nostromo?
Well, so the thing was like, the way Geiger wanted it laid out, everything was going to be unique, and there was going to be like a corridor leading into the entranceway, and Scott was like, we just don't have the budget to build unique sets for all this. So like what he did...
Probably the time either.
Yeah, what Scott did was he just took a different section of the alien spaceship, rotated the set, and then they used that, and Geiger was like, wow. But you can't honestly, you can't even tell in the movie.
Because it's so dark too, so...
The massive space jockey too. That was what the alien on the ship who had the broken open chest was called, or what they called him on set, and what most people just call him now. Yeah, Geiger also designed the eggs, the alien eggs that John Hurt's character gets assaulted by.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that they added into later. They were like, how do we get the alien on the ship? And at first they were just like, I guess it just sneaks on. And most of the people working on the movie were like, that's pretty lame, but, well, I can't think of any other better way that it can get on the ship. But then once they thought of this, I forget who it was, but someone, I think, had a dream about it or thought about it right as they were going to sleep and immediately woke up and
probably Geiger, since he seems to have only nightmares all the time.
Maybe. I think he woke up and called Ridley Scott and he was like, hey, what if the alien was a parasite and, like, implanted itself in this guy's stomach? So... apparently, I think Ridley Scott said this, but again, I don't remember who. It was like, once we had that concept, we knew we had the entire movie down.
Yeah, I think Scott said that. I read that too.
And I was like, that might be a bit of an overstatement.
Yeah, but it does make the movie better and makes the alien more terrifying because it uses the human as a host.
Yeah, it does. It makes it a lot more terrifying, but even with that concept, you can still make a bogus, garbage second half of the movie. So I think...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was about the same time they decided John Hurt was going to be the guy who's going to get killed off by the parasite inside of him because I think John Hurt...
they had to pay him the most.
John Hurt was the most expensive actor on this movie. As far as I know, he was the most well-known when this movie was made.
He's the only one who, I actually knew besides Sigourney Weaver, and that's you know her because of this movie, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
I was reading something, they were talking about how everybody thought John Hurt was going to be the hero of the movie because, in the marketing, obviously, because they didn't make it out John Hurt's going to die in this movie, but, everybody's thinking John Hurt's going to be the hero, and all of a sudden, he just dies. Speaking of John Hurt's death...
really hurt.
Yeah, well... Wow. It's like that joke, why is... I don't remember.
All right.
Why is 7 afraid of 8? Oh, because McGann hurt Eccleston. Because the war doctor's between 8 and 9.
Wow.
I never said it was a good joke.
Wow.
Oh, anyway, his death really traumatized the actors because apparently they didn't know what was going to happen. So Ridley Scott had this rig built, for the chest burster scene, the famous scene in this movie. And so the way it was laid out was so there's the rig, which is just the chest, and then John Hurt was kind of under the table, but he had his head up, so it looked like the head was connected to the chest rig. And so the script apparently just said the thing emerges. So all the actors are like, what's going to happen? And so Ridley Scott had this elaborate plan. He didn't tell them what was going to happen, but he had the rig. He had stuffed it full, with the little alien, but he had stuffed it filled with real animal guts, by the way, that they got from a butcher, just sinew and organs that they had retrieved from a local butchery. Yeah. And apparently it smelled rancid. Not surprised. So they did one take, and the alien's kind of trying to burst through the clothes, and we gotta put a slit through the clothes so the alien can burst out. They didn't tell the actors that. So they did the one scene, and all the aliens are leaning in. All the people are leaning in, what's going to happen? And they stop, and they come, and they do the little slit so the alien can come through, and then they continue rolling. So everybody's leaning in, what's going to happen? And then kaboom, alien pops out.
Yeah.
Guts everywhere, fake blood everywhere. And apparently, Yaphet went to his hotel room for the rest of the night and didn't come out. And the other lady in this movie, I don't remember her name, passed out because she got hit by fake blood in the face and was terrified by that. So, yeah, I think Scott said he did it because he wanted all the reactions to be genuine. And
just pranked them.
It's just a prank, bro.
Actually kills them in their deaths. Cutting edge director. No.
Yeah, so that shock that's on all their face, that's real. None of them knew this alien was going to pop out of his chest. That's the first movie, I think. Done. I did read that
made a couple $1 billion.
That, million.
Yeah, no, I was just exaggerating.
Fox knew they had a hit on their hand before they even released the movie because they did test.
Star Wars came out and they're like, "Hey, we can cash in on this."
Well, they did test screenings, and apparently the test screenings were the best Fox has ever had up to that point. People were screaming and yelling and dropping their beers all over the place, and apparently it was a huge success. So Fox they knew they had a hit on their hands, and they did. They immediately greenlit a sequel that then took 7 years to make.
Yep. And due to complications, had James Cameron on as the director.
It wasn't really complications. It was more Fox saw the Terminator. Well, so Fox didn't know how to do a sequel. They're like, how do we do a sequel to this? And then they saw the Terminator, which was one of James Cameron's first movies. I think it might have even been his first. And they're like, hey. Well, they read the script of the Terminator. It wasn't out at the time. And they were like, hey, we could get this guy. So he came in and he wrote a 42-page treatment. And they were like, it's pretty good, but we're going to pause. And then James Cameron was like, okay, I'll go back to working on Terminator, thanks.
Yeah, he was kind of just passive aggressive every time they're like, nah, we're not gonna do this. Every time Fox tried to back out, he was just like, well, fine then, I'm gonna go do my own thing. And they're kind of just like, yeah, all right, let's do it.
To be fair, if Fox doesn't give him like a job outright, there's no reason why he should hang around there and wait when he's got this other job already lined up.
Yeah, but the way it was described was like him just being like, fine, Fox, if you don't want to do it, then won't do it. You know, it's gonna be great, but fine. Don't do it.
Well, he came back and he edited the script, and they're like, well, it's pretty good now. When can you shoot? And he's like, right now. And they're like, all right.
Well, there were some complications with getting Sigourney Weaver back.
Yeah,
apparently, I don't remember I think Fox was like, well, we don't really necessarily need her back.
Okay, so, the reason why Fox said that to James Cameron was like, we're not doing this movie without Sigourney Weaver. And Fox was like, no, we can do it without Sigourney Weaver. And Fox said that the reason why they said that was because if Sigourney Weaver knew that they couldn't do the movie without her, then her agent can ask for a bigger bigger paycheck, basically, for the movie. So Fox didn't want to I think Fox wanted Sigourney Weaver, but they didn't want to let on that they wanted Sigourney Weaver because...
Well, that's what they told James Cameron, and he's like, well, fine then. I'm just going to go do my own thing again.
Well, yeah, because James
like,
Cameron
fine,
was like...
do it.
Well, so James was like, I don't want to do this movie without Sigourney Weaver, because I guess it wouldn't have worked without Sigourney Weaver.
Third one would have.
Yeah, and it was going to originally. But, so eventually they did get her. She was paid $1 million, like I said, which... a lot of money.
Yeah.
In 86.
About how much I make in a day, but no.
Why aren't you bankrolling this podcast?
Yeah, so they started making Aliens.
Apparently it was inspired by the Vietnam War era Marines.
Yeah, they didn't want to make another horror-ish movie like the first one.
Which makes sense when you see that Alien 3 tried to do Alien 1 and it was garbage.
Well, not kind of, but... yeah, they, I guess, wanted to make a more action-y movie.
Yeah, James Cameron wanted to go for, like, an action...
Yeah, they're inspired by Vietnam War.
An action thriller movie.
And Rambo.
James Cameron was apparently offered Rambo.
I think...
The sequel to Rambo,
I think Weaver, has gone on record saying, like, yeah, I imagined Ripley as a Rambo kind of character in this, which isn't really that true. I mean, no, she's more like a tactician kind of character in this, actually, but until maybe the end. But
apparently Weaver was super anti-gun at the time, and she didn't want to even pick up a gun in the movie. And
it should be. What? Who said that? No.
James Cameron was like, this movie's not going to work if you don't pick up this gun in the final act, and she's like. So James Cameron took her to a shooting range, and he had her shoot some real life rifles, and apparently she loved it. So she decided, yeah, I'll pick up the gun at the final act of the movie.
Yeah, not sure why many of the actors on this thought they had, enough say to be like, nope, not doing that. Nope, not gonna die. Nope, not gonna act in this movie if I don't die at the end.
Apparently, I think I might be misremembering this. James Cameron's brother, I think, or someone related to him was a Marine and was like, yeah, you got the Marines totally wrong. And he was like, I was trying to do it Vietnam era Marines. I understand this isn't accurate to present day.
So just damage controlling all his mistakes. Just wait till we get to David Fincher.
I mean, when I heard that he tried to do it like Vietnam War Marines, I was like, okay, that actually makes sense when you watch the movie. You can actually see that, but like you wouldn't think that off the bat. At least I didn't.
No, well, I mean, they kind of explain the Vietnam War inspired setting, like the more technologically advanced Marines, who are obviously the Americans, going into the less technologically advanced alien area, which is obviously Vietnam.
Yeah.
But still getting their asses kicked.
Yeah. Apparently, at the time, Fox was like, you got to cut this movie down to 2 hours and 5 minutes, because at the time it was running to
like 2:17 or something.
2:17, I think. Well, actually, it was longer than 2:17.
And they cut it to 2:17.
And they cut it to 2:17 by cutting out an entire sequence of the colony. And James Cameron was like, just nix it.
Might have been for the best, I don't know. But yeah, I never actually thought of this before, but I was like, yeah, that actually must be a big concern of studios is keeping the runtime short because then they can show it like another time in the day.
Yeah, that's the exact reason why Fox wanted it at 2:05.
Yeah.
At 2:05 was the longest you could have and do 5 showings in a day.
Yeah.
Anything longer than you can only do 4, which is why they wanted to cut it down to 2:05. But he was like, it's not going to work if we cut it down to 2:05, and Fox eventually gave in. And I guess it worked because Aliens also made a ton of money. But anyway, that's besides the point.
Yeah.
What else happened that was interesting on the production of Aliens? Aliens was the least interesting of the 3 production-wise, I think, because Alien was starting the new trilogy, and Alien 3 was just
ending
Alien
the trilogy, ruining everything the first 2 had set up. Not really, but
James Cameron introduced the Alien Queen in the second one, which makes sense, I guess, because
it's operated by some puppeteers, I think.
There was always the question of where do the eggs come from?
The alien stork, obviously.
Apparently they're going to do a stop-motion Queen, but they didn't have the time to do it. Apparently the second one was made on a real big time crunch. Like, Fox was like, this movie is coming out in 1986 on this day, and I don't care what you say. And apparently James Horner was really pissed off about having to write the score for this movie in 2 weeks because they were still filming like right up until a month before the movie came out.
Yeah, so they gave them the 1986 date like 4 years in advance or something, and they actually do that for most movies. Mm-hmm. They set the release date like 3 to 4 years before the movie comes out, but if the movie is like not ready by that time, they usually do delay it. But apparently they didn't do that here.
Yeah, James Horner was like, can we delay the movie by 4 weeks so I can write a good score? And James Cameron was like, Fox is not going to let us delay this movie. You got to write it now. And James Horner was like, I'm never going to work with James Cameron again. It was too rushed and I hated it. But then he came back and did Titanic anyway, so.
Yeah, his heart went on.
Well, I guess they just got over there.
No, wasn't that actually by, what's-her-face?
Yes.
That wasn't by him, right?
No. This was actually James Horner's first nomination for the Academy Award for Best Original Score, so, maybe he should write his scores in 2 weeks, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't, maybe. I didn't notice the music, and I didn't notice the movies. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't notice the music in any of these movies as being, like, really stand out or interesting at all.
I noticed it in the first one, but only because it sounded exactly like the Star Trek score, and that made sense because it was written by the same guy. The Star Trek motion picture score.
Yeah, the like Aliens scores, like, whatever. I didn't notice it or think it was that good.
Yeah, on the topic of scores, because I'm going to forget to say this later, apparently the Alien 3 score was recorded during the 1992 LA riots. And the composer was like, that's why it sounded so intense, was because outside the recording studio, everyone was just rioting.
Yeah, so Aliens
huge
came out
success.
And they're like, we're making another one.
And then, so apparently Brandywine Productions, who are the guys who've been like really pushing the first 2 movies through Fox, were like, I don't know if we can do a third one. I don't know if there's anywhere else for us to go. And Fox was like, you're doing a third one. There's just this end of discussion. You're doing a third one. And they were like,
I guess it was sort of like a Back to the Future situation where the Universal in that case was like, a second one's happening whether you guys are involved or not. It's going to happen, so...
Yeah, they
sent to Zemeckis.
They almost even did the Back to the Future thing with this one, because the 2 people in Brandywine, what are their names? I think it's Guyler and Hill.
Name.
Guyler and Hill are like the big guys in Brandywine. Yeah, they were like, okay, well maybe we can do back-to-back filming. We do Alien 3 and 4. So the original plan. All right, keep this in mind. This is plan numero uno, number 1. Of like 7. The original plan was to do Alien 3, which would be focused on Hicks, who survives at the end of Aliens with Ripley and Newt and Bishop's Head. So the third movie was going to be about Hicks, and it was going to be like a Cold War vibe to it. It was going to be there was going to be this kind of like communist quote unquote party, the like United Populist Party, and they were going to board the ship, find an alien on board or like an embryo, take it, and they would start developing their own bioweapon, and then Hicks would end up on a space mall, and he would have to fight an alien there, and the mall would be owned by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. So it was going to be like the corporation would be the quote-unquote US in this, and I guess the United Populist Party would be the quote-unquote Soviet Union. So it's going to be like a capitalism versus communism thing. And then Alien 4 was going to be, Ripley was going to show back up and team up with Hicks. And there was going to be this big fight between the corporation and the UPP, the United Populist Party. And Hicks and Ripley were going to be stuck in the middle trying to stop the two from using the aliens as bioweapons. So that was the first plan. Plan number 1. They approached, they actually had William Gibson write the first draft of that script. William Gibson is known, apparently, in the sci-fi circles for writing the apparently seminal cyberpunk work Neuromancer.
Yeah, I know about that.
So he wrote the very first draft of the Alien 3 script.
And I actually don't know much about this early draft. I don't know how it got scrapped.
Well, so what happened was they brought in another guy to rewrite Gibson's script, because Gibson, I think they read Gibson's script and like, the concepts are there, but your characterization is garbage.
So we're going to get Hollywood to fix characterization of all things.
Well, so they got another guy, who I don't remember his name, and he doesn't get credited in the final things or whatever, to fix up the characterization, and he changed the Space Mall setting to the prison, so that's where that comes from. It's very interesting watching them go through all these ideas, because you can see where all the pieces start to show up for the first time.
Well, the prison gets scrapped and then reintroduced.
Yeah, the prison gets scrapped, but yeah, he changes the setting to a prison.
For a much cooler sounding setting, and then gets reintroduced.
So he changes the Space Mall to a prison, and he works on the characterization. At this point, Fox was
great character backstories in the final version. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I think at this point, Fox was like, we don't feel confident to committing to Alien 4 at this point, and they were like, oh God, this isn't gonna work.
Which actually directly goes against things that David Fincher has said.
Yeah.
He's gone on record being like, with having as having said that Fox told him, dude, just make whatever you want. It's Alien 3. People are going to watch it. Even if it's a pile of garbage, just make it.
I don't know if I buy that.
Yeah, he blames them, actually, I guess to this day. Cause
I kind of blame them too, but I also kind of blame David Fincher. But anyway.
Yeah, I blame him more than Fox. But anyway, we'll get to him. We'll get to him.
Yeah, so this other guy was working on the script for Alien 3, and then Geiler and Hill. Actually, this is kind of a real big jerk move what they did here. This other guy was working on cleaning up Gibson's script. He's like, I'm going to make it great. And apparently they really liked, or Fox and Brandywine both really liked his first draft of his edits. And they were like, yeah, keep going, we'll call you. And they just never called him. At that point, they decided not to go with that idea, and they just never called him back. And that guy actually found out from the news that they had hired someone else to do it. And he was like, wow. Wow. Kind of feel bad for him, to be honest. He put all his work into this script and just never got called. He never even got told they weren't even using his script anymore.
Yeah, kind of a jerk move. I don't feel bad for him, though. I just don't.
Yeah, they spent $7 million writing the script before they even started filming the third one. $7 million on a $35 million budget movie. That's a fifth of the budget. That's insane.
Nice.
Anyway, I think it was at this time that they found I think Geiler had gone to an art exposition in LA, and Vincent Ward was there showing off one of his short films, and they're like, he's pretty visionary. Let's get him in and see what he'll do with with Gibson's script. And Ward is just like, I'm throwing this all out. I'm starting from scratch. And they're like, fair play to you, I guess.
So he rewrites the prison as a monastery set on a woodland planet, I guess,
Well, it was originally a wooden space station, I think.
Yeah, but I think they changed it to a planet at some point.
Yeah, because they couldn't figure out the logistics of how you get a wooden space station into orbit, how you would build it.
His version takes place in a library made completely out of trees and foliage, and it's all wooden. Mm-hmm. And they had these cool scenes planned out where the alien would be jumping off bookshelves and hiding in this library, and they had all these cool futuristic looking mechanisms that you might find in like a cyberpunk world or like a sci-fi spaceship, but it was all made out of wood, and
Yeah.
it sounds really cool. It sounded really cool to me, especially after the claustrophobic and futuristic indoor industrial settings of the other two movies, and then you get this. But no, they didn't end up going with that because
Well, so yeah, the plot was a little more complex than that because it was going to be. This is where the original idea of the pod crash landing came from, because it was going to be Ripley was going to crash land on this planet, and the monks were going to be all men. That's also where that comes from, because they're monks.
Yeah.
And they were going to see Ripley landing as some kind of test by their god, and Ripley is kind of their version of the devil, almost.
Yeah, so it was going to be like that they gave in to temptation or something, and that's why the alien is attacking them.
Yeah. And she was going to be trying to help them beat off the alien while also trying to beat back the monks because they think she's like the coming of the devil.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like or Ripley, I guess, was supposed to take less of an action-y role and just be, I guess, sort of examining her relationship with the aliens or whatever, which that sounded kind of hit or miss to me. They kind of did it. They kind of did it, but
because this is where the whole pregnancy with the alien queen comes from. Was also this.
Yeah, but I mean, they didn't really hit the mark in the finished movie, and this sounds kind of better, but it also sounds kind of lame.
Yeah,
but then again, it's also like, after Ripley's this big action hero in in Aliens, like, where do they go with that? Because I guess we'll get into this when we start talking about how it worked as a trilogy, but it's kind of over for Ripley after the second one. It's kind of over after the first one.
Yeah, and I think honestly, Brandywine
or
Geiler and Hill realized that, and that's why they were going to focus the third one originally on Hicks.
Yeah, and then exactly, and then have Ripley come back as like this hero, who arrives in the fourth one and saves the day. Because like, where else would they go with her character after she saved the day in the second one?
Yeah. So, but then I think everyone was just dragging their feet and taking so long to get going. Vincent Ward is like, I'm going to go make this other movie now. Bye. And they were like, oh, God.
David Fincher.
Well, so first they hire Larry Ferguson to rewrite the script, and he does, and then they're like, this is garbage. And then so Geiler and Hill were like, well, I guess we'll rewrite the scripts ourselves. And that's where everything, I think they just drew everything together because it becomes a prison. There's all the men. Ripley's got the alien queen inside of her. There's the crash landing. They kill off Newt, Hicks, and Bishop. Apparently James Cameron saw that as a slap in the face. He's like, everybody really liked these characters I introduced in the second one. They just killed them off screen. Like, wow, guys.
Well, the reason I kind of forgive them for that is because of the stupid romance subplot in the second one. And I really didn't want them to go anywhere with that. I really didn't even want them to introduce it. But they did.
Late.
So, but then they kind of just, they do just sort of write that out with a giant kick in the nuts, which I appreciated. So, yeah.
I don't know, I kind of get where James Cameron's coming from.
Yeah, but then again, he wasn't attached to the third one. So keep complaining, James. Maybe it'll change something. No, it won't.
I mean, it might actually get that Alien 5 that retcons Alien 3 and 4 out of existence. Because the original pitch for that was going to have Hicks come back, too.
Hicks wasn't even an interesting character, honestly. I'm kind of glad they killed him. Ripley wasn't anyway. I mean, either. I'm kind of glad that or kind of not glad that they didn't kill her until the end of the third one, but not really.
I mean, they made her an interesting character in the second one. The first one, she was just third in command of the Nostromo, trying to survive. In the second one, they revealed, she had a kid that she was coming home to, and the kid's been dead now for 5 years, and she's got nothing left in this world because she was in stasis for 52 years.
Yeah, 57. For the first one, they actually gave all the actors like backstories for their characters. It didn't play into the movie at all, but they did give them, like, I think Ripley got like a 9-page backstory.
Yeah.
So I know when we were watching it, we're like, wow, this whole daughter thing kind of just came out of nowhere, but maybe it actually was part of her backstory all along.
Perhaps. Feels out of nowhere when you're watching it.
I mean, it feels out of nowhere when you're watching it because it doesn't it's not even mentioned in the first one. Whether or not it's part of that backstory, I guess it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Whatever, though. Yeah, so the third one, they get David Fincher, this is his first feature-length film.
Yeah, he's a music video director, but he did work on, like, Star Wars and Indiana Jones in, like, a minor role.
He's done, like, good movies since this movie, which is why I partially blame the studio more than him, because, like, he did The Social Network, which in my opinion was a good movie. And I'm pretty sure... What else did he do?
Fight Club?
Yeah, he did Fight Club, which, like...
7 or whatever that movie was.
Most people consider Fight Club, like...
one of the best movies
He did ever. Gone Girl. So, he did Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Like, he did a lot of pretty well-received and pretty good movies. So, that's kind of why I partially blame the studio more for this than him.
Yeah. Kind of interesting how his career took off after this failure of a movie.
Well...
It wasn't really a failure.
Directed another feature-length film for 4 years after this movie. He went back to just doing Michael Jackson and Aerosmith videos, and then somebody called him and was like, hey, you want to do 7? And then he directed 7, and that's when his career really took off. I mean, he's even gone so far as to disown this movie.
Yeah, well, they got him, and
apparently he was trying to be Stanley Kubrick reincarnated, because he was a perfectionist who did 24 takes usually, or 20-something takes for every scene in the movie.
Yeah, wonder how that shot of just panning against a wall made it into the final movie. There's literally, it's in the middle of the movie. If anyone's curious enough to go back and find it, it's literally just a brown wall with the camera just panning against it. Nothing on the wall. Nothing. No place for the. This is when Ripley's looking for the alien, and it might be hiding in the shadows. No place for the alien to hide. Yeah.
I found an article that was by this reporter, and it was the first ever set visit to Alien 3. And he was talking about how...
The sets weren't built yet. There was a fire in the back. They were trying to put it out now.
Well, the article started off really interestingly because it mentioned that at this time, the James Bond series was in legal limbo because of Thunderball, mostly, and Spectre. And so there wasn't a Bond movie coming on. So the reason why that's relevant is because Alien 3 was filmed in Pinewood Studios. And Pinewood, if you don't know, built an entire stage just called the 007 stage, the sound stage, where they film most of the 007 movies, because the biggest stage at Pinewood, they built it specifically for that. So there was no Bond movie, so they were filming Alien 3 on the 007 stage.
Yeah, another interesting, just to interrupt for a little bit, another interesting thing that we didn't mention about the second one was that since it was filmed in the UK, James Cameron had a hard time working with the people who worked at the studio, because they would always take like a lot of breaks and not get as much work done as he wanted.
Breaks.
Yeah, so.
Well, I mean, of all the things, that's the one I blame James Cameron for the least, because he was kind of on a time crunch, like we mentioned, trying to make the movie, and I'm pretty certain those breaks weren't helping.
Well, no, breaks actually do help. I mean, if you just keep working and working and working, you're going to get burned out, so you do need a break.
I mean, yeah, but they were taking breaks like every 4 hours, like, tea break, let's roll.
That's actually a good thing. Like, if you keep working for like 12 hours straight, you're eventually going to start getting less work done than if you actually just took a sizable break and came back refreshed.
I also like how on the second movie, the assistant director who worked at the studio thought he was the director and would apparently roll his eyes to James Cameron's face and would give his own directions. So James Cameron was like, you know what? You're fired. You're not on this movie anymore. And the guy was like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, you're fired. And apparently that solved all the problems. You know, you fired the assistant director and they got a new one.
Alrighty then. Yeah, so David Fincher has gone on to sort of damage control his movie.
Yeah, he's also disowned it, like I said. Of their, the 4 movies, they released like a quadrilogy set, which I think is the one I own, but in the early 2000s. And David Fincher was the only one who didn't participate in the release, because all the other directors did like commentaries or behind the scenes stuff, and David Fincher was like, no thank you.
Well, we can talk about how much they had to cut from the third one. So there was an entire subplot with Paul McGann's character, which they eventually had to cut for time. And David Fincher was like, yeah, if we didn't have to cut that, people would like this movie so much more. Just add so much to the story.
I don't know if I buy that.
That cutting it out kind of made the movie a lot worse, and I think that's why a lot of people don't like this movie. And I was like, yeah, I don't really believe that.
Well, there is an assembly cut of the movie, which I think was assembled later.
We didn't watch it,
yeah. David Fincher wasn't involved, but it was assembled later by, I guess, people involved with the movie, and it featured a lot of footage that had been cut or alternate takes.
And changes. Apparently the alien gestates inside an ox instead of a dog, which doesn't really make sense because you don't think of ox like this lithe and speedy thing where you do think of, a dog might sort of be. But
I wouldn't think there'd be an ox on a prison colony either.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But maybe we should talk about the final script of the third one where every other word is the F word.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of F-bombs in the third movie.
Kind of made it really unenjoyable to watch.
Yeah, because it loses its meaning if it's
it's like
all the time.
It's like when a character says it, you know that they're like frustrated and stuff, but when it's every other word, it's just like
you can even drop the F-bomb a lot if it's like all at once, because if it's all at once, like if some guy just goes into a room and just starts dropping the F-bomb 10 times in a row, then it's really, really frustrated. When you spread out those 10 F-bombs over 20 minutes.
Well, it wasn't even 10. It was literally like 10 a sentence, not 10 a character or 10 a movie. It was just like every other word. So I honestly wonder whose decision that was.
Yeah, because the first two, I think there was maybe one in the second one. I don't even think they used it in the first one.
Yeah, the first one wasn't that dialogue heavy, especially once everyone dies and it's only Ripley left.
That was a questionable decision if I ever heard one. When the guy who played Hicks found out they killed off his character off screen for Alien 3, but he found out they used his likeness in the pod, he was able to negotiate with Fox.
He pulled a Crispin Glover and
Well, he did get paid the same amounts they paid him for Aliens just to use his likeness in Alien 3. Probably because he's like, I'm gonna kick up a legal hellhole for you guys if you don't pay me.
Weaver also said that she wouldn't do the movie if Ripley didn't die at the end. They were apprehensive, and I think David Fincher was actually apprehensive to kill her, but eventually he decided, like, you know what, she does need to make this sacrifice at the end. And he went on the one interview he's done about this movie, he went on this like entire tangent about about Ripley's sacrifice.
That's okay, they bring her back.
Yeah, bring her back in Resurrection. And originally, David Fincher was also really upset about the alien queen bursting out of Ripley as she fell. Apparently he said that ruined the entire scene and he didn't want it, and I don't know why, but apparently it was just him being pretentious, I guess. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe what he's going for is that if you didn't see the queen burst out of her, then you could, there could be some uncertainty about whether she actually even had a queen in her or not. And
yeah, maybe. Or like Ripley also killed the queen when she sacrificed herself, so.
Apparently they had like 5 endings written up for Alien 3 too, before they filmed, and Sigourney was like, I'm only taking the one where she dies, and they're like, but what about these other ones that are way better and could have sequels? And she's like, no.
Joke's on her, it got a sequel anyway.
And she came back.
Gotta get that sweet alien money.
Yeah, that's the thing about Sigourney Weaver that's kind of weird, is for 3 Alien movies in a row, she's like, I'm not coming back unless the script is amazing, and they do blah, 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 and she came back for all 3 of them.
Yeah, gotta get that sweet alien money.
Anyway, yeah, that's Alien 3.
That's Aliens, and Alien 3.
Somehow all 3 of them had completely different production crews working on them. Which, honestly, I actually...
The second one had some of the people who worked on the first one.
I actually kind of liked that they had a different production crew on all of them, because it
changed it up a little bit.
Yeah, changed up the game.
Wasn't just the same movie every time, like Jason Bourne.
Yeah. It felt like they were all in the same world, but they were each putting their own unique spin on it, at least as much as the third one did, which is not very much at all.
I guess we're starting to talk about how it worked as a trilogy, but actually I disagree with that. I didn't feel like the second and third one felt like they took place in the same world because of how much they fleshed out the company. The first one was like this horror movie. It was this isolated incident with the alien on the spaceship, and there's this whole sci-fi universe, right? I think they mentioned the company, they mentioned some other stuff, but it's just this contained and isolated situation that they have to deal with, which is the alien. Then they blow it up into like this whole thing with more backstory, more sci-fi universe, the company, the colonies, the Marines, all this other stuff, and it was just like,
but I think they had to do that. I liked how they did it in the first
one. Yeah, but I can't believe I'm saying this, but I kind of wish they did just go for, let's just do the first one all over again.
I would have honestly hated that if they'd done that, and I did for the third one.
Third one didn't feel like that though. The third one felt more fleshed out, and it also felt like they were trying to go for something more character driven when they started quote unquote fleshing out the characters with crap you just didn't even care about.
But the third one is what would have happened if they had just done the first one again for the second one anyway, because somebody along the line would have been like, we can't just do the same thing. We gotta have the company, and they would have done that anyway. There's no way in which they would have done a movie where they didn't flesh out some aspect of the movie and just remade the first one.
Yeah, I thought the third one built off the second one a lot more with the company and with like trying to add these interesting characters and not just have, them all die and stuff.
I mean, and
with their own unique traits, I guess.
Prometheus is very similar to the first one in that it's almost exactly the same story, but it also fleshes out something completely different in that it goes for a completely different religious theme direction. And even that, like, I liked the movie, but I still wish he hadn't just remade Alien.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess all I'm saying is I just didn't like where they went with, the whole company and even the whole action-y type thing of the second one was all right, but I guess you can say it works as a trilogy where, like, it keeps you interested every single time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I maybe if they had made the same thing for the second and third one, I would have hated it. I don't know, because that's not what happened and it's not what we watched. But something in the back of my mind is saying like, yeah, that would have been pretty cool, because the first one was really good, and I don't think they would have topped the first one, but they might have come close.
I don't even think they would have been in the same stratosphere.
Guess we'll never know.
I guess. I don't know. I like the idea of the company, especially with what they do with the company in Prometheus and Covenant. Where it's revealed that the company's been searching for years for the perfect bioweapon, and yet they still keep it a shadowy corporation. You don't actually know what the company does. I don't know what the company sells. What does the company make?
That's actually a good point, but I still think I like that just minimal like glimpse into what like this world is. Even though it actually was pretty minimal in the third one too. The second one, it was actually a little bit more fleshed out, especially at the beginning. Even then, it wasn't exactly fleshed out, but still.
The fleshing out in the second one was just like, oh yeah, the United States still exists. The Marines still exist.
Yeah, apparently they put a year on the first one. I forgot what it was, like 2170 something or whatever. So.
Yeah, and then 57 years, the second one. And the third one is 6 months or something.
The only way that I'd say this works as a trilogy is that it keeps you interested every single time without being the same thing every single time, whether that's a good thing or not. It sort of keeps you.
Well, I think Alien and Aliens work well together.
Well, Ripley's story's kind of over after that. So.
Yeah, because those two tell a pretty compelling story for Ripley. The first movie, the alien is stalking her, and the second movie is kind of she's stalking the aliens.
Sort of,
but that's...
She goes back for the aliens.
Yeah, that's what they're going for, is like the second one's the revenge story, which works in my opinion. The third one, to me, is just...
we gotta get Ripley back, so... Yeah, I mean... Yeah,
a lot of people despise the third one. You know what? I don't despise the third one. I just think it's a bad movie.
I enjoyed watching it, I guess.
Yeah, because some of it was kind of funny. A lot of the dialogue was like really bad, especially when the prisoner just
the F-bombs. Like, every 2 words.
Well, also like instead of showing us that the prisoners were rapists and killers, one of the guys just straight up goes, "You shouldn't hang out with us. We're woman rapists and killers."
There is that rape scene though, so
yeah. But there's also that line that's legitimately just the prisoner going, "We're woman rapists and murderers."
Of women.
We're pretty bad. Killers of women.
Don't forget that awkward part of the line.
Of women.
We're rapists and murderers of women.
That wooden monastery.
David Fincher has also said, like, people just didn't get that I wasn't going for a straight up scary horror vibe at the end. That's why the Damage Control 101 That's why the characters are acting sort of funny and sort of bringing light to the scene or whatever.
That's 100% Damage Control right there. You know what's fun? I was reading about the fourth one, and the director was like, "I decided to try and make it a dark comedy," and I'm like, "Oh boy, here we go."
Oh Jesus.
Oh, I guess this is the part of the episode where we talk about expanded universe.
Alien v Predator.
Oh yeah, those movies.
Those movies that are more famous than Alien.
Apparently, I think either James Cameron or Ridley Scott, they tried to get one of them back for Alien 3, and they found out about Alien versus Predator, and they're like, it's besmirching the franchise, I'm not coming back.
But more people know about Alien versus Predator than Alien, honestly. Like, I brought up Alien to someone, and they're like, you mean Alien v Predator? And I was like, no, just Alien. And they're like, yeah, Alien versus Predator, right?
Yeah, because I feel like Alien was like a big movie of the 70s, but it was kind of overshadowed by
Star Wars.
And then in the 80s, there were a lot of those fighting movies come out, Rocky, Rambo, Hercules, and those movies were like, what if we did that, but in space? And that's how Predator came about. So, so a lot of
I honestly don't even know much about Predator, but
it's
I guess we can watch that at some point. But
it's a science fiction story about predators.
Wow,
there's the Predalien. An alien gestates inside of a predator, and then you get the Predalien. That's honestly the coolest part of the series to me, is that the alien takes on like aspects of the species that it gestates inside.
That was a really good thing that I think they added to the third one. That wasn't part of the first or second one, and I forget who came up with it, but it was someone who worked on the third one. That was a pretty cool idea. You got to give them credit for that. Another thing I liked about the third one, they actually did this in all three. So I liked how they kept it up, is that the alien is sort of just, when it's hidden, they sort of just, when they reveal it, sort of just chilling there, and then just waves its hand like, hey, what's up? It does that hand wave in every movie.
I am not the alien you're looking for.
I also read, I guess going back to the first one, that the movie was going to end with the alien dying on the exploding Nostromo. Then they added that ending scene, which was a good decision. That was a really creepy and cool scene.
I read that the first scene of the second movie, the very first scene where they cut into the pod and find Ripley, they didn't have the budget for that scene at all, so James Cameron paid for it out of his own pocket.
Huh. Also read that Scott originally wanted the alien to bite Ripley's head off at the end of the first one, but Fox was like, no, the alien has to die. So he was like, fine.
Probably a good thing, too, because if it had done that, he wouldn't have this franchise to come cash cow his retirement savings out of. Alien vs. Predator. There's Alien books. There's Alien
There's a
comics.
junior novelization. Not sure how that works.
There's a video game that's pretty garbage, I've heard, called Aliens Colonial Marines, where you play as Marines fighting aliens.
Every video game based off a movie, almost every video game based off a movie is pretty bad, so.
Yeah, there is one good one for Alien that I haven't played yet, but I do own it.
Wow.
My friends played it, though.
Wow.
You basically play as Ripley's daughter, the one who's dead by the time the second one happens.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I believe this, but I read that picture of her daughter is actually a picture of Weaver's mom. I don't know if I believe that, but that's apparently.
I haven't heard that. That's interesting. Yeah, it's set on a space station.
Wow, so surprising.
It's very similar to the first one, but you play as Amanda Ripley trying to fix the apparently I can't say space station. You're trying to fix the space station, and it turns out there's an alien on board, so you're trying to fix the station while also avoiding the alien.
And that sounds like one of those games like System Shock or like one of those things, but yeah, whatever. I'm probably never going to play it. I'm kind of over video games at this point.
It works really well as a video game because it apparently really captures that sense of dread that you get in the first Alien, because you have no way to fight back against the alien in the game. Like the alien, and you barely ever see the alien too. The game's very dark, and you can hide in like cupboards and vents to get away from the alien. So
yeah, it sounds pretty cool. Probably something I would have been interested in a couple years ago, but I'm so over video games at this point that, whatever.
And then also the prequel, supposedly supposed to be a trilogy, but Covenant did so poorly at the box office based on expectations that it might not happen. Prometheus and Covenant.
Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully that turns into a trilogy so we can watch it for this. Because we're planning on doing the fourth one for the 0.5.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it turns into a trilogy because Covenant ends on a massive cliffhanger that doesn't lead into the first Alien at all. So, trying to connect those two is practically impossible without knowing what Scott was planning to do in that gap.
Yep, so that one's pretty new, actually. It just came out this year, I think.
Yeah, and I saw it, and I liked it. So, yeah. You can email us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts. on Alien, the seminal sci-fi horror classic that spawned a ton of knockoffs, apparently. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play, all at Triple Play. Leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Also like us on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter, at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. And next time, we're going to be doing something related to the Alien franchise, probably Alien Resurrection.
Yeah, I think that's our pretty much tentative plan.
Yeah. And then after that, we're going to be diving right into the Star Wars prequel trilogy. But until then, the end.